coaches should have a copy of. So they may have already sent it to you. And if they haven't, you can ask them to share it with you. And if you're a coach and you're not sure, you're not sure where to find it, or you remember going over it, but you don't know where you saved it, just let Heidi and I know, and we can share it with you as well. These are also available on the NEPBIS website. So they're accessible there as well. The second kind of new component to this year is the use of Canvas as a learning platform. So we found that, you know, using email and the website was convenient for some things, but made it difficult to be able to, you know, conveniently kind of share documents and be able to review products like your matrix or your referral system, or be able to, you know, take a peek at your action plan and provide feedback. So we've started using Canvas as a way to organize not just the training materials, like the, you know, the resources and the readings that I just shared a minute ago and the slides, but also as a way for your team to share documents with us as trainers, and then we can review and provide feedback to you on those pieces. So this was developed to, you know, we adopted Canvas to try to help facilitate an extra layer of support in that way. So hopefully, again, hopefully you have received another invitation to Canvas if you kind of hadn't seen or lost the first one, because a lot of them, I think they might have gone to spam folders if, you know, if you've never used Canvas before. And we'll do, you know, in a minute, we'll do like a quick overview. Heidi will give us a quick tour of Canvas so that you can see how everything is organized on there. But please, if you are not sure, you know, how to log in, or if you haven't received the invitation, just drop your email address in the chat and let us know, and we will resend an invitation, and you should receive it within, you know, minutes of us resending it. So as I referenced, there's also going to be synchronous trainings this year. And we are working to meet with school teams, or you want your school teams to be meeting at least monthly as a group to be able to move forward. So hopefully you have your meeting schedule for the year. And this is facilitated by your coach. And we are hoping to attend at least 3 of those school team meetings this year, either virtually, probably virtually, but maybe at some point in person, if we kind of get to that point. In addition, there are 2 days of additional technical assistance time that's available. So Heidi or I can join you guys, can meet with your coaches, can meet with your team around really whatever kind of goals that you have. So that might be, you know, we'd be happy to meet with you to look at data and help analyze it and use it to inform your action planning goals. We would be happy to, you know, if there's particular questions that you have, we'd be happy to join and, you know, help problem solve some of that. If you'd like us to, you know, to present to a group or to staff, let us know, and we can also support that. So there's a fair amount of time for individualized support to your school. And then finally, Swiss is still covered by the Academy. We will cover the cost of the school-wide behavior data system if that's something that you want to utilize while you're in the Academy. And we can provide the training to your team anyone who is going to be entering data or analyzing data in Swiss, we're happy to provide that training. So just let us know if that's something that you're interested in but don't have yet, or if you have, if you have new team members, you have Swiss, but you have new team members and you want to get some new people trained up on how to use Swiss, then we're happy to also provide that. All right, before we move on, any questions about any of the sort of the structure of the Academy? And while we do that, maybe Heidi can pull up Canvas and give you a little tour of how to find things and how things are organized in Canvas. Just a show of hands, since I can see your faces now. Thumbs up if you've seen the learning plan for this year. Thumbs down if you have no idea, if this is the first time you've heard anything about it. Okay, lots of thumbs up. Great.
All right, so I am going to bring you to Canvas and bear with us here. I know that many of you are messaging us in the chat that you haven't yet gotten an invitation, or you haven't seen that yet. So when you log in, it's going to look like this. And it's organized by each month. And so you'll see, September coaches directions, team directions, and every month that's how the content is set up. So we're in October, so you would go to October team directions, and all of these are hyperlinked. And so in here, you've got the Zoom link. So if you're searching around, looking for it, and I know that we do have some visitors today from cohort 5, and so your Canvas site will look a little bit different. We also have some district coaches on who have been added to multiple cohorts. And so you might be, as a district coach, you may be supporting schools in different years of implementation, and that's okay. So if you click on these, you'll get access to the slide deck. The team profile that Katie was talking about is hyperlinked right here. And we're going to talk about, what Katie's already mentioned, that one of your team tasks is completing the team implementation checklist, or the TIC, next month. And so, that's linked in here as well. We'll go ahead and make sure that coaches have access to the team implementation checklist in PBIS apps. So I have not done that for my schools yet. I don't know if Katie, you have done that, but I will make sure that by the end of October that you all have access to the team implementation checklist in PBIS apps. And it's helpful to do it in there so that we can monitor progress over time. And then all of those readings and resources that Katie was talking about are hyperlinked in here. So everything is, kind of organized in one place. If you have not yet uploaded your team profile, you can see here that when you click on that, there's this blue button in the top right-hand corner that says Start Assignment, and you can just click right in there. Okay, so you can download it to your computer, and then you can, so if you want to download it, you can do that here, work on it as a team, and then you can upload it here. And I'm not going to do that, but you would just select choose a file on your computer, and then make sure that you hit the submit assignment.
And for any of these submissions, only one person from your team needs to submit. So if one person on your team is kind of identified as the note taker for a particular task, and they complete the document and upload it, then everyone on your team will be able to see it, and it will be uploaded for your entire team.
Are there any questions about uploading assignments? Go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
I just want to add, and welcome to all the Holyoke folks that are here and joining us today. all this Canvas stuff, you don't have to worry about it. You are in cohort 5, and cohort 5 is not using Canvas. You can just sit back and relax. And if you got to invite to Canvas, you're welcome to view it. And if you want to have access to Canvas, I will give you access, but you do not have to worry about submitting anything. But I want to make sure you have access to Canvas if you would like it.
And that goes for Central Berkshire Regional as well, I think.
Thank you. So yeah, don't worry about submitting stuff. We'll work with you and your trainers around emailing back and forth, and that's great.
Before I move away from this screen, is there anyone who has had difficulty uploading in Canvas or has any questions about uploading documents? Okay, perfect. Great. Sometimes Chromebooks can be challenging. So if you're using a Chromebook, you might need a little bit of IT support because I have found that sometimes folks struggle with those. So, okay, so I'm going to cancel this and I'm going to just navigate to people in here. You will be able to see if you have been invited to Canvas. I want to just point out the groups. So in the groups, these are going to be your schools. And so if you're not already part of your school group, then you can click on your name here and you can add yourself to a group. Okay. And so, if you just type in your email address here, then it will give you an option to assign yourself to a group. Any questions about that? And I see, most of these are pretty filled in, so that's great.
Heidi, all the assignments are group assignments.
Yes.
So before you submit your assignment, only one person in the group has to submit, which is great. It checks it off for everyone else. Please make sure you're in your school team group before you do that. We are trying to assign folks, but we're not sure which group everybody's in. So please go on to people and assign yourself to group if you get a chance. Thank you.
So the last thing that I want to point out in here, unless folks have any questions, is that Katie was talking about those asynchronous team training content. So, our next team training is March 9th. In between, though, almost every other month, you have got some asynchronous training content. So there's a very short video here that's less than 10 minutes long, I think. I think it's like 6 minutes, to be honest. And your November coaches directions are in here, and the team directions are in here as well. And so this is going to prompt you to, once you complete the tick, to go ahead and update your action plan with measurable goals, and then upload a copy of your action plan in here in November. And so all of these are hyperlinked. If you click on them, it's going to bring you right to the video, and I'm not going to play that. But just kind of check in to make sure that folks know where to find all of these resources. And I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your faces. Any questions on Canvas?
Heidi, I have a quick question / comment. Several of our team members have other Canvas accounts and have been unable to get into this Canvas account. It keeps bumping them out. So they're not able to join. For example, they're not listed as a group member. Is that a problem? I'm sharing. I can watch the videos with them. I can share everything with them. But is that a okay solution to that?
Yeah, so two things. So I also have multiple Canvas accounts, and I have to log out of my primary Canvas account in order to log into the UConn Canvas account. What I recommend to folks is just bookmarking the site to make it easy, right? So that you can save multiple like passwords and all of that. But if that doesn't work, it's totally fine for you as a coach to upload upload your resources. Elizabeth is a rock star and is like always ahead of the game and has everything submitted. So I have no concerns whatsoever about that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm not sure I'm a rock star, but I appreciate it.
Any other questions about Canvas? All right.
We can also, when you're in your teams, we can also pop in and troubleshoot, with you more individually if you're having, if you have questions or having issues. Awesome. So hopefully, the goal of using this is that it allows us to organize everything in one place. And once you're in, you'll have really easy access to all of these different, the resources, the PowerPoint slides, a lot of, different elements, as well as the links to the meetings if you want to get the links that way. So hopefully it will make everything easier and more streamlined for you. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about sustaining PBIS and what it takes to sustain PBIS, and then give you time to have some discussions in randomized breakout rooms. So are people, thumbs up if you're familiar with Dean Fixon and colleagues and their research on phases of implementation and implementation science. This group has done a lot of, I think, really fascinating research on sort of what it takes to implement really any kind of program and the natural phases that organizations go through as they implement new initiatives. So this doesn't apply just to education or just to PBIS, but it certainly includes implementation of PBIS. But basically, we know that you go through a number of different phases as you implement a new initiative. And although this graphic looks linear, the process is not actually linear. It's a little more, I don't know, organizations may kind of like loop back to earlier phases. And, if there's a large amount of turnover in staff or administration in a school, for example, you may go back to some of those activities in installation to sort of reestablish your leadership team, to fine tune some of your data systems. And if there are big disruptions, such as a global pandemic, then you can sort of go back into some of these earlier phases and, kind of beef up some of that, like maybe go back to initial implementation and some of the activities there where you're providing more significant support to implementers in getting things up and running again. And then as initiatives move on from initial implementation into sort of elaboration and maintenance and sustainability, there's this process of continuous regeneration that continues to happen. And, this is all data-based, so as new information comes in and kind of new needs are identified, then teams go through that process of incorporating that information, using it to increase efficiency and effectiveness of their practices and systems. So I think this is a helpful way to think about where we are, where you are in implementation of PBIS. Have we had to kind of go back and reboot a little bit, and knowing that it's a process that continues to move forward, and that's natural can be helpful. Thinking about implementation or PBIS implementation within the context of that process, we know that there are some key features that really support sustained implementation of PBIS. And those 4 key features are listed here. And those are the pieces that we're really going to be focusing on this year. And if you haven't a chance, then you saw the video that was posted in Canvas for last month on the 4 tips for sustaining PBIS. And if you haven't had a chance, that's okay. Once you get into Canvas, I encourage you to watch that video again, either with your team or independently, and talk about it. And that video is quite short. I think it's about 5 minutes long, and it's with Kent McIntosh, who is the director of the National Center. And again, this information or these recommendations are based on research that he's done. So we know that keeping a strong team, consistently using Fidelity to make adjustments and improvements to our systems, as well as using school-wide data to inform our interventions that we're planning for our school and to support the decisions that we're making about what practices we're putting in place or where we're investing our time and efforts, along with ensuring that PBIS is implemented in the classrooms, that it's really embedded within what we do in the classrooms with students. Those are the 4 key pieces to sustainability. So with those things in mind, thinking about, again, those phases of implementation and those 4 systems, the teaming system, measuring fidelity, measuring outcomes, and implementing PBIS in classrooms, take a moment to think about, where do you think your school is in implementation of those different systems? Are you in maybe kind of going back to reinstalling some of those pieces after the last year and a half? Are you maybe in this mode over here where you're elaborating on some of those and building upon the structures and the systems that you put in place a year or 2 ago? Think about kind of where you're at, and we're going to create some randomized breakout rooms for you to have conversations about, what that process has looked like, and kind of what you're working on in those areas, along with, what goals or action steps has your team talked about to continue building robust teaming systems, data collection, and classroom implementation systems. Any questions before we go into our groups? Everybody, anyone want to share any either highlights from your conversation, any particular goals or action steps that you discussed or that you heard others share in terms of, what they're thinking for supporting, their team's data collection or classroom implementation this year?
I can share out, Katie, for my group. I don't want to speak for the whole
Thanks,
group.
Mike.
I think in general, our group was feeling kind of stressed this year right now, based on the shutdown and kids coming back into the classroom full time, and also teachers, really feeling it, which according to my group has left some teams kind of small because teachers are really busy and not really willing to commit to joining PBIS. There was myself and another group member who are looking to implement Swiss this year or soon, and we talked about that a little bit. But overall, I think people felt like not a complete restart, but a lot of things that kind of have to be restarted because of last year.
Yeah, and I know that can feel it can feel overwhelming and sometimes discouraging, feeling like you're restarting again or trying to pull things together again. And I think, again, in sort of framing it in terms of those phases of implementation and thinking about that being a normal process to go through and focus on something, I know some schools I've talked to have had, they had really well-developed, elaborate systems that were in place and operating really well, or had just started to kick off when the pandemic hit. And then everybody got pulled in multiple directions, right? And there were a lot of stresses put on systems. And so I think it's important to, I don't know, to give yourself grace and to recognize that it's not realistic to expect that, just now because everybody's back in school, that you can jump back to that place of, kind of full implementation maybe again. It's okay to kind of pare down and say, okay, what are the key features or the main goals that we really want to focus on, and work on getting those few things developed and up and running. And maybe that's your team, and really focusing on developing your team and recruiting a strong team to get you in a good place for, next year. Or maybe that's one piece of, implementing in classrooms. It's one thing that you want to really invest in and bring back. But I think it's important not to try to do everything all at once, because that can be stressful and overwhelming, and it often doesn't go very well. Christine, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to just speak on behalf of the BB school. So when we started this, we had a really strong core, and we still do. And we really got traction quick with celebrating kids' successes and looking at their, how they're accepting and responsible and kind. And we kept it really simple and streamlined, I think, where, students are getting acknowledged based on those behaviors that we want to, reinforce. And, they've got dojo, they got tickets, but now they get dojo points. We had to shift gears, right? We had to pivot because of virtual. So dojo just worked. And, we still keep that data of how many dojo points, the homerooms get, the students overall, a few students are selected on each, I'd say for around quarterly or every few months, and receive rewards and prizes. And we even did PBIS assemblies in person, and then we did it virtually. Kate Greco got real creative with how that rolled out, and the kids really looked forward to it. How often did we even have, the whole sixth grade together virtually, right? And so we figured out a way, and it was a lot of work, but the rewards paid off huge. And this year we've easily doubled in size on our team for PBIS, where it was really important. I think the admin were big on the push, because they're a part of the team and they have the buy-in. It has to start from the top down, right? And so we have almost every grade represented now in our school, which helps with the adult buy-in, which I know John over in Lynn had mentioned. I think it was Jessica as well, is getting more buy-in from the adults, from the teachers, right, to really push this and award. But another thing we got traction on this year is this good news of the day, kind of good news of the week, where you submit student names based on the ideas of, acceptance, responsibility, and kindness. And it really went somewhere where Dr. Murphy and the admin have traveled now to classrooms to, say the names out loud in front of their peers. We have a frame, it's like a selfie frame, and sunglasses and doodads, I guess we'll call it props, that the kids' pictures are being taken. And and something with we're gonna have PBIS assemblies, and it used to be the admin that would run those, right? So our coach Chris Fitzpatrick and Kate Greco would run it for K to 4. Dr. Murphy or Mr. Kilbride would run it for 5 to 8. But now the teachers, myself, would run the 6th grade assembly. Wendy Yakov, she would run the kindergarten assembly. And so by seeing your classroom teacher and where it's coming from the teachers, and it's not an admin presence in that regard and from the kids, I think that there's even more buy-in. And also with the good news of the day, I think that whatever, it could be 30 or 40 kids that got not chosen, but really submitted, because we saw that, quality that we really embrace at our level, at our at our school to have them stand up on the stage. You know, they may not get an award because you have to think about, you know, the financials of this, like how much money it costs to, like, say, give prizes, which is everyone wants a prize. But I think being on the stage for 5 seconds, 10 seconds of fame and having your name read out in front of your classmates is a huge, you know, I think it's going to be huge for the kids to see their peers and be like, I want to be that kid. I want to be on that stage. And, you know, and that's free. So I think we've tried to keep it fiscally responsible and be reasonable about it, but we have a lot more hands on deck where, you know, like John had said, you know, everyone's so busy getting back in the building. And I guess if you can expand your team even by 1 or 2, you know, everyone has something to bring to the table and is willing to step up to the plate, you know, so I just can't speak enough about our team and just that it's possible, but yeah, keep it simple. And, you know, the ideas are great, but you just put something into play, even if it's one thing, put it into play and make it consistent and build on it. It can't all be done in, you know, in one fell swoop, certainly. So that's all.
I love that. Yeah. I love that advice is put something into play and do it well. And yeah. And I think fantastic. Kudos to your team for people, you know, being willing to jump on and join in that, especially at this time. Any I don't know, strategies or advice you would share? Like, how did you recruit people to join the team, to build your team?
I mean, certainly it was solicited, like, you know, we would like to have a member from each, you know, team level. And I just think that inherently people that are drawn to this kind of conduct as a teacher, your personality, I think a lot of it's personality, maybe the outgoing teachers, or maybe it's the, you know, the people that wear their heart on the sleeve, the touchy feely, you know, the ones that are like, oh, you're too sensitive, you know, there's a place for you. and really PBIS for me is the place for me, you know? And so it just, like, when I look at the team, it's the personalities that just kind of came together. I think is just like gravitational pull to the.
We all just go to be inspired by Christine. That's really what
yeah. It's like,
That's
you know, you can go to
show
the
up.
dark side of the force, or you can become a Jedi. And so, you know, and I think that you have to talk about it. You have to be excited about it. You can't just go through the motions. And if you don't really have your own true individual buy-in, then you're really doing a disservice to the rest of the team or to the school, right? And so maybe you do some other majorly amazing thing at your school level, right? We all contribute so many different things and so many strengths. And this is just, I think, one of those programs that drew people to and wanted to see the change. I think personally, I saw a big shift in morale amongst the staff from my first year at the BB, and then trickling and just kind of going from a high school within the district to the BB, feeling the culture. And then the culture changed, and it certainly changed a lot over COVID, and it's very different now. And I think there's a lot of us that want to see that teacher morale and that cohesiveness back. And I think that's part of, I don't know, that's just what I don't know why Wendy and Barbara and you know, some of the others that are on our team now, how they became part of the team, why they chose to do this. I can't really speak for them. I'm making presumptions, I guess. I don't know.
I think that part of the thing too that we really wanted at BB was more teachers at various grade levels. And so like Christina is a 6th grade teacher, so she really knows what 6th grade kids like motivates them. And so I think that Chris and I and like Kevin would spend time planning assemblies, and we're not in the classroom with those kids. So it's very helpful to have people on the teams that are with the kids day in and day out and know what they're motivated by, know what they want to see, know that Bruce the Bulldog coming out for kindergarten is going to be the best thing ever. But for 8th grade, they're like, I don't know if I want to see Bruce today, you know? So I think that having teachers from different grade levels really provides that. And so we did solicit during like the back to school meetings to say that we were really hoping to get more people on the team. We also directly asked the school social workers and the guidance counselors to be part of the team. I think that in the beginning, we hadn't necessarily invited particular people. It was kind of open. So now we said, you know, with the social emotional needs that our kids are facing this year, we really need our 2 school social workers and our 2 guidance counselors to be on the team to kind of help support that. And everyone graciously said, yes, I will join. And, you know, everyone said, I don't have time for this. I have like other daycare up, like expectations to pick up my kids. So I think that we as a team kind of looked at like, okay, how can we include these people and not make it more of a burden in their day, and kind of figure out how to have them on the team and be a part of it because we want them there, and try to work around the, like, I need to leave at 3, I can't stay till 3:30. Like, that's cool, go, you know, like, we're happy to have you for the time we have you.
Yeah, and when you have a deeper bench, you're able to do some of that too. You know, it's like not everybody needs to be involved in this one thing. Like, you know, if it works for this group of 3 people to do this at this time, then, you know, that works and one of them can report back. So I think you can.
And honestly, having the lower grade teachers being a part of the team has been the hugest catalyst for me to like, I mean, the way that they implement the dojo points and how they, you know, advertise it and they have it going, like, you know, the kids at that level know what the value of that is. They really understand what we're doing more than the upper grades. And so there's so much, you know, that I've learned and gleaned from, you know, Wendy and the other team members in the K-4 and how they, you know, support and continually, you know, I don't know, put it on display is the behavior expectations. And you see it when they walk in the, you know, in the hallway and their lines, and, you know, it's really a part of their routine and the culture of that. And it's just so much that the upper grades 5 to 8 could really learn from and you know, implement themselves, because the stuff they're doing is phenomenal. And it's just so much you don't know about what other teachers are doing and other pockets of the building are doing. So it's been nice.
Right. And that level of coordination within the team too. I mean, I can hear it in how you speak, has, you know, supports teachers and builds a positive climate that can permeate the entire building. Which is, I think, you know, the adults need a lot of support right now too, right? Like we know that the kids need support, but the adults are needing a lot of support right now too, because what we're doing and asking of them is tough. So having that team to provide that level of support and fun as well, right? I mean, we don't want to forget that. I think is really important. I think this is fantastic launch into our next topic, which is on teaming, but I don't want to, is there anyone else that wanted to share out from their discussion? Okay, we'll have other opportunities. So as I said, I think this is a great segue into a discussion on teaming. We're familiar with these guidelines for teams, and I think Kate and Christine talked really well about how they have integrated these 3 different elements, kind of core elements of teams in terms of membership and ensuring representativeness of your membership. You know, I couldn't say it better, right? Like if you're able to get a voice from kind of every pocket of your school, that supports buy-in and representation, and it helps see, especially for a K-8 school, or even larger schools, you know, like large middle schools or high schools, getting representation from each department, each grade level, can really help with building a system that really does work for everybody. They spoke about systems, and, you know, if the meeting time doesn't work for everybody, then that's okay. We'll work around it and we'll find other times to coordinate and for folks to meet. but establishing some common rules and agreements and ensuring that your goals are integrated with other behavior related initiatives in the building, again, helps to kind of streamline everybody's work, right? And then scheduling, I know, can be the biggest challenge when people are drawn in so many different directions. And we know that, you know better than anyone, you know, the people that tend to sort of volunteer for PBIS often volunteer for lots of other things in and outside of school. And so finding time to meet is difficult and super important. So creative strategies for how that is done. And I know different schools figure this out different ways. Some have a large kind of like a larger team that then has subgroups, and maybe those subcommittees meet at different times. So it's only coordinating 3 or 4 people's schedule rather than 8 to 10 people's schedule. And then somebody from that subcommittee reports back to the larger team. Or, you know, I know I've worked with some schools that will meet weekly, you know, for half an hour before school on a particular day, or they carve out time during PLCs, or PBIS is one of the PLCs in the building. Or some schools will relieve PBIS team members from duties if your school has duties assigned, or they'll use PBIS as a duty. So again, there are creative ways to figure out the scheduling, and it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach. We know that there are these kind of 6 important features to sustainable teaming. And again, I think we heard some great examples of a lot of these. And continue to consider, we talked about this at the coaches meeting last week, but including parents on your team and how to recruit parents to get that voice included on your team as well. That goes a long way with, you know, with buy-in and collaboration, and again, developing sustainable systems. So we're going to break into your teams this time, your school teams, and give you guys about 10 minutes as a team to discuss, you know, where are we at in terms of our team foundations, what are our goals maybe for our team in terms of, again, shoring up supports or next steps, or how do we get a parent on our team? Where should we start with trying to recruit some parents? What further supports do you need from us? Is there anything that we can do to help? And then if you have an example, a teaming success example that you want to share out to the whole group. All right, welcome back, everybody. So we'll take a break in just a moment, but before we go to over to the break, anything anyone wants to share from your team discussions in terms of kind of where you're at, goals that you have for your team, next steps, or ways that we can support you, or just something that you want to discuss and kind of troubleshoot? Maybe an overwhelming array of options. Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Well, we were just discussing, we've been pretty successful, and one of the areas we really want to focus and work on, we're hoping that anyone out there has some ideas, is it gets a little bit tougher. We're a 5 through 8 school, and it seems that by some 7th, but definitely by 8th grade, it's just not, there's not enough buy-in, and it's a real struggle. So we were just wondering if there were
from the adults.
Both teachers as well as students.
Yeah.
So teachers
If the
as well.
teachers don't buy in, then the students won't.
Right.
Right.
We want to know, are there any 7th, 8th grade real success stories, and how do you keep that fidelity and that success? Anyone else?
That is a great question. And I'll give people a chance to share what you guys have done.
I
Any
teach eighth
examples
grade.
of what's-
I
Yeah, go
I
ahead,
teach
Jake.
eighth grade. And one of the things I do is I throw it out to the kids. I say, what's going to motivate you? I just do, I do a poll. We have Schoology, so we have discussion posts. And a lot of times just giving them that voice, and they don't necessarily get the things that they want, but it gives me ideas to kind of find something that might work for them. Like, I know I can't buy every single one of them McDonald's breakfast, but if I could do something like, oh, I bought a bunch of granola bars, like your class gets breakfast for the day, or something like that. Obviously food is a big problem right now for COVID, but giving them something that they have that voice gives them more buy-in.
Excellent. Love it, Jake. Other middle school examples? Michael?
I just wanted to ask Jake a question. Is your team on board too, or are you kind of solo as a teacher?
Well, that's just in my classroom. We have other things in the cafeteria. That was our focus area. And we're kind of troubleshooting that right now because we have one of our biggest incentive was choosing where you sit. That was obviously now with COVID, we have assigned tables and assigned seats. So that's kind of like, we kind of try to figure something else around that to give them motivation, some sort of motivation or incentive that they're going to buy into.
And do you feel like the other teachers, the eighth grade teachers, are on board as you sound like you? I mean, you are obviously on the team, but are other teachers on board, or is there any?
I think for the most part, yes. I think we're a pretty solid team. Like, we work really well together. The eighth grade, like, we have a eighth grade wide, like, we call it the fourth floor fundamentals that we built back in June, and we implemented through the first month of school year, just to kind of like deal with like a lot of the eighth grade issues, because the eighth grades all cluster together. So we have 400 and something kids all in like one hallway. So we worked really well, like coming up with like kind of like buy-in in terms of, how to keep them motivated to do the right thing. And I would say like 90% of the eighth grade teachers are like definitely bought into that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think regardless of the age of your kids, whether you're a K to 5 or 5 to 8 or 9 to 12, it's always the oldest kids, right? That last grade level that is the hardest to get buy-in. Like, I meet with elementary schools and they're like, oh, the kindergartners, first, third, second, they all buy in. The fifth graders, oh my gosh, the fifth graders don't buy in. So whatever your composition is, and using those older students as leaders, and getting them to take a more active role in leadership, teaching the expectations, modeling the expectations. An elementary school that I worked with had the fifth graders be the ones that handed out tickets at certain times of the day to the rest of the students. And so they were involved in, providing, and paired with specific praise. So they were the ones involved in kind of, providing that reinforcement for the rest of the school. A middle school that I worked with in Salem they actually developed an advisory that students could take as an elective course. And students who opted into that course were then, part of the team really for that semester. And ideas were, the team consulted them on ideas. They provided feedback and input on the design of PBIS implementation, from the lesson plans to the reinforcement system to, how to respond, ways that were effective and not effective in terms of responding to behavior, the areas of the school that needed more attention and more adult monitoring. They provided input and feedback on all of that. And really were leaders, had an opportunity to be leaders in the school for that semester. So I think anytime that you can incorporate student leadership and voice at the older grade levels, the more you get buy-in. You know, in high schools, I know a lot of high schools will have their seniors have the opportunity to be mentors, or I forget what they're called. But at the beginning of the year, they're like ambassadors. And at the beginning of the year, students in seniors who opt into this can be, you know, paired up with usually a group of like 10 freshmen. And they meet with those 10 freshmen at the beginning of the school year. They reach out to them before school starts and say, you know, this is who I am, and feel free to approach me if you have any questions. And they get to meet with their, you know, the seniors get to meet with the freshmen, and they wear particular shirts, like purple shirts, or I forget what it is, for the first couple weeks of school, so that they're identifiable by the freshmen. And, you know, and they support kind of onboarding the freshmen for the school year. So again, lots of ways to kind of incorporate that. But thanks, Jake, for your examples. And yeah, Elizabeth.
I was just going to say, I think that I'm not sure how this would work with high school, but when I worked in a middle school and then also here in the elementary, most kids are motivated by competition between other classes. And so, you know, I know in middle school they switch classes and stuff, so I don't know if there's like an advisory or something, but like our 5th graders had incredible buy-in to an initiative we're doing for like good transitions by having a competition. And the teacher was a huge positive in that, because she's super competitive. So she really bought in with the kids. But that was something that motivated them a lot. They were very excited. They ended up winning this competition and had like popsicle party or whatever. But I think competition's a motivator for all ages if it's done with enthusiasm by the adults. So that's just an idea.
Yeah.
And Jake was mentioning kind of, you know, trying to stay within the budget too, and like, you know, food being an issue. You know, I found I've done a lot of youth leadership work, and you know, at those older grades, once you get to 7th grade and up, you know, I think that what is reinforcing for many adolescents is time with their peers, right? And so looking for, you know, opportunities to build that in, you know, is often reinforcing. And so if you can, you know, have your team brainstorm maybe 4 or 5 doable options, and then maybe survey the youth, right? Like, of these options, like, which would you prefer? Recognizing that one thing is not going to be reinforcing for all students. Oh, great. YouTube and games. I love that. Great comments in the chat.
Anyone else want to share either a goal or a question? Yeah.
I'm Jen Barker. I work at the BB. I'm the middle school guidance counselor. And we didn't, in terms of rewards, I haven't found anything too successful with that yet, but I know that myself and the other counselors went into the 8th grade classes last week and did a climate survey. So we had the 8th graders complete a Google survey asking them all questions about their school climate. And we generated a lot of useful information from it. And it put it in graphs. We were able to pinpoint the problematic areas. It was great. So if there's ever a way to, you know, they could probably tell you what they buy into more of with just a simple survey.
And this is one that you designed yourself?
No, I wish I did. It was from a book, middle school counseling book that we had. We tweaked it a little bit, but it worked really well. We just put it into a Google form.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, surveys are definitely helpful. And if you can do this, ask the same questions year after year, you know, that's also obviously informative because you can see where the trends are. Were you able to disaggregate your survey data at all?
Yes, it did it for us. That was the best part.
Awesome.
So the Google Forms did it. It put it all to it disaggregated it for us. So we don't have any work on that end. We just have to now go. We're just going to go through it and look at what the forms are showing us. So
yeah, because that can be really helpful. Right. Yeah, that can be really helpful too, because you can see that, you know, well, maybe the boys in 8th grade are having trouble with this, or students of color have a different response than, you know, other students, or students who identify as, you know, I don't know, not heterosexual, they find that they don't feel as safe in the school as other students. So it can be helpful to see, you know, are we meeting the needs of everybody?
Yeah,
Right.
easy way to do it too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. With Google Forms, huh? That's great.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, let's take a break. And
Thank you everyone for coming back. We are a little bit behind schedule, so we're gonna jump right in. And I will share my slides. And we recognize too, you know, that a 5-minute break for this is not enough. So, you know, if folks need a break, you know, feel free to go ahead and build in your own break as well. But, you know, we always say that if we're not implementing in the classroom, right, then we're really not implementing PBIS. So, you know, sustained use of effective classroom management practices is related to really having a comprehensive and effective support system. And so, you know, in this 3rd year of the PBIS Academy, we want to keep a focus on supporting your development of these systems to facilitate sustained PBIS implementation in your school. You have in your November asynchronous team content, you've got a very short video on classroom practices that we would like you to watch with your team before the next training. And it discusses some of these tips for sustaining PBIS. None of them are new to you. You know, really just reinforcing what you are doing. We heard some lovely examples of all of you so far today about many of the classroom practices that you are using. And so just consider where you are with each of these systems and what steps need to be taken to continue to build robust teams, you know, use data consistently and kind of check in on the fidelity of that data and be building your classroom systems to support school-wide implementation and decision-making. Great resources as well. Many of you are familiar with the resources that we put in the chat initially. All of those resources are hyperlinked as well. Supporting and responding to behavior is probably one of my favorites. But Brandy Simonson has a beautiful book as well around supporting classroom implementation. There's really 3 important components of classroom implementation, and that's grounding in those foundations, like maximizing structure in your classroom and posting teaching, you know, expectations, making sure that we're reviewing and monitoring those expectations. And then, you know, reinforcing and acknowledging expected behavior and building a continuum to respond to concerning or inappropriate behavior. And so, you know, such as redirection, you know, conferencing with a student, you all have, you know, great strategies, I'm sure, that you're using to as part of your continuum for responding to some of those inappropriate behaviors. But we want to make sure that we are looking at data as well, right? So that we can regularly check in and monitor whether we're making a difference, whether the strategies that we're using are effective, and again, are being implemented with fidelity. And some of you, again, shared great examples of how you're doing that, right? Class Dojo, for example, you know, allows you to kind of track by classrooms, you know, acknowledgements or reinforcements that are being given out, you know, by student. So really looking at those and then considering the following questions and what data you use to answer some of these questions. So are there foundations of effective classroom PBIS in place, and is it consistent across your school? That's usually where most schools struggle. Did data indicate that students are still engaging in problem behavior? One of our goals this year is to support you and your team in assessing classroom implementation of PBIS and use those results to plan support and professional development for staff. So we want to give you some time as a team to, check in and really think about those classroom foundations and, consider some of your goals for the upcoming years and problem solve around that. So we're going to give you, we're not going to give you 45 minutes here. Because we are a little bit behind schedule. But if you haven't uploaded your team profile and meeting schedule, now is a good time, to kind of finalize that in your teams and upload it to Canvas. And you can always join the main room or request help in the